Well, what we've been doing each and every day since before Illinois' gun and magazine ban was enacted, we've been covering all the ins and outs of this story as it impacts more than 2.4 million gun owners in the state of Illinois and dozens of gun stores where gun owners go to buy their firearms. And one of those gun stores out of Naperville has a couple of layers of regulation on top of them, prohibiting them from doing business. And to talk more about that, joining me right now is Robert Beavis from Law Weapons, who sued Naperville last year and amended his complaints to include the state's ban, and that made it through the Northern District courts in federal court. It's in the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and now is up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Robert Beavis joins us now here with WMAY. Robert, thanks for taking time with us. I guess just give us some background on what you do and how this is impacting your business.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having me on the show today. Well, Law Weapons has been around for quite a long time. We moved into Naperville in 2012, and we're a manufacturer, firearms dealer, and we do importing as well as firearms instruction for both law enforcement and civilians. And you asked me the way this has affected me. Well, Naperville is trying to put us out of business. We've been battling this since August of last year, and they're getting a pretty good head start on knocking my business down to nothing.
Robert, when it comes to the arguments that have been made, even in the Northern District, when the judge ruled in favor of the state and the city of Naperville, it seems those arguments continue all the way up to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals and all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, with Amy Coney Barrett, the justice there, receiving the city of Naperville and Illinois' complaint, or at least response to your motion of an emergency injunction. What's your understanding of their arguments, and what's your response to those arguments?
Well, I think their arguments are using dead law. They're using law that's outdated. They're not adhering to Bruin and McDonald and the Heller cases. And I think their position is pretty weak. We believe that it's completely unconstitutional what they're doing, and not only that, but they're it's duplicative of what they're doing compared to the ban. And it is a direct attack against Law Weapons. It's a lot of political theater and posturing for the council members that voted on this, trying to get other seats in different areas. But the shame, the bad part is that the good that Law Weapons has done for the city of Naperville, and their law enforcement community, and the citizens of Naperville, this is a complete attack, and they have no remorse at all for what they're doing. They know this ban will do nothing to stop any crimes.
Robert, when it comes to their arguments that you haven't met the standard, that you're going to be harmed by this law being in place, and it's been in place since the beginning of January, and state law has been in place since January 10th. What's your response to saying you haven't met that standard, that there's irreparable harm here?
Well, first of all, Greg, we are down to about 10 to 15% of our normal business right now, which no business can survive losing that much money. Okay. But, they look at this and say, oh, it's not irreparable. If I were to win the case, I could get a money judgment that would make me whole again. Right. Well, that's not the case. Let's say Greg is a customer of ours. You spend $1,000 a year at our store. We've lost thousands of customers. How do you figure out the economics of that when you have a customer that goes away for 10 years, so $10,000 per customer times thousands of customers? How do you ever recover from that? So how is that not irreparable harm? There's no way that I can actually keep Law Weapons going unless they really wrote a big check at the end of this. But just figuring it out is hard to do. But all people that are not able to get firearms to use them in self-defense, that's irreparable harm. That's something that maybe somebody doesn't survive from because they weren't able to get a firearm. So it's absolutely an issue for the U.S. Supreme Court.
And that's why you've got it in front of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And what's your understanding of how this moves from here? All right, I mean, they've got conferences each Thursday, basically throughout the end of the court session, late June. Now that the state and Naperville has filed their response, how quick do you think that Coney Barrett's going to conference or possibly make a decision on her own as to whether or not you should be granted an emergency stay? Or an emergency injunction, I should say.
I'm sorry?
An emergency injunction, I should say.
Yes. Well, the procedure is, they have responded to our complaint, and we're going to reply to that. And I think that goes out this morning. It should be filed, and then justices will be able to, make a decision on their own timeline. Obviously, nobody knows what that would be. We're hoping, of course, that it's as soon as possible to help stop the bleeding from law weapons. But the bad thing is that if Naperville succeeds in getting us out or closing my shop down, what that does is it sort of resets all the cases back to the district court, because this Supreme Court case would then be moot, and we would be back in front of the district court and the appellate court trying to, as a group or as a whole for Second Amendment, trying to get back to the U.S. Supreme Court. It could be a year later. By that time, you've got all the laws are in effect with the registration and everything. So it's very important that we, continue to fight as law weapons. And, we need help from the viewers out there, people that believe in the Second Amendment and our rights.
Well, how can people do that? Of course, this is a multi-pronged challenge we've got. So we've got the Southern District cases with multiple gun rights advocacy groups behind that. You've got Dr. Herrera out of Cook County in Chicago with his separate case. You've got your case out of Naperville, Highland Park, Deerfield, all these different cases. How can people step up to assist in what's going to be a costly legal battle continuing to move forward here?
Yeah, one of the best ways is, hey, we need donations, right? We need people that believe in their rights and want to keep their guns, and especially with all these guns that were bought during the injunction, and their threat that they're not going to be able to be registered and things like that. We need people to donate, and they can go to our website, lawweapons.org. We have a pop-up there that'll show a donation page, and also GiveSendGo/Law Weapons, or GiveSendGo.com/Law Weapons. Anything to help keep it. Right now, we are on life support. It's costing me about $30,000 a month just to keep the doors open. So whatever help anybody can afford to do, we need.
Robert, talk about the significance of your challenge, right? Because the Southern District's challenging the state's law. And when that injunction was put in place for 6 days, people went out to gun stores and across the states, they were able to purchase weapons. Now there's questions about the legality of those weapons with the Illinois State Police statement they provided me on Friday. But your case isn't just about the state law, it's about the city level law. So talk about the importance of that, next level of a determination here on the constitutionality of such measures.
Well, Naperville, first of all, there was the Floyd Act, I believe of 2013, that allowed municipalities to ban semi-automatic weapons and things like that in their city. They had about 10 days to sign up to be able to do that. Naperville didn't. So there's a preemption. There's a law there that was stopping them from doing that on the state level. That's number one. But what they've done is, because it's a city ordinance and the state cases were going against J.B. Pritzker and the Attorney General and the state police, it didn't apply. The injunction did not apply to Naperville's ordinance. So they kept it in effect. So here, basically, you had hundreds of people that said, came to our store saying, hey, we've got an injunction. Let's go ahead and we want to purchase firearms. And I had to tell them that law weapons can't do it. And they blame me for it. For some reason, they don't understand that I'm prohibited by the city's ordinance from selling them. So people, went elsewhere to buy these guns. So I think that, eventually we're going to get to a point where the Supreme Court is going to rule, that what they're doing is unconstitutional and against all of the precedent that's already been set in the other Supreme Court cases. So, we're looking forward to that. It's just a matter of getting there.
And whether or not we get there before the January 1st deadline for people to register firearms, that's a deadline I think a lot of people are looking at. But we see historical precedent elsewhere that these types of measures, when it comes to requiring registration, there's not much of a compliance rate there. What are you hearing from some of your regular customers on this? Are they just lockstep right there with you, and how have they been harmed by this?
Yeah, a lot of the customers. I mean, we received approximately 250 firearms that were sent during this Freedom Week, we'll call it. People purchased items online, had them shipped to our store for delivery. Really nice firearms, and then we got hit with like about 200 boxes show up. Now, when you're the customers are, they're understanding. Our regular customers, we had a base of about 7,000. I think it's down to maybe 3,000. But the customers that know us and come in regularly, they understand, and they're waiting. A lot of customers are asking us to return the items or ship them to other states, to family members in other states, or actually to different gun shops in other states. So it's created a heck of a lot of work for her. And again, no income coming in, but ATF rules require you to get these guns put into your A&D book in specific amounts of time. And when it takes 15 minutes to do one gun, yeah, you got 250. How long does that really take? It's a lot of work, but we're doing the best we can.
Robert Beavis with us from Law, Weapons, and Supply out of Naperville, one of the chief plaintiffs in the case that has been brought against Naperville's gun ban, but also the state of Illinois' gun ban. And Robert, while the 6-day window, that injunction was in place, you guys could not sell because you still had the Naperville ban on top of you. But what kind of info can you share with listeners on how the Gun Dealer Licensing Act, that's separate from the Protect Illinois Communities Act? How do you see the Gun Dealer Licensing Act possibly playing a role in state police going to gun stores and checking records from during that 6-day window? Is that a real possibility in this conversation?
Yes, absolutely. The state law does allow them to come in and view records at any time. They have the right to come in, inspect your records, check your any purchases, see the actual 4473 forms that were filled out by the customers. So, but you also have the FTIP program, right? So Illinois is one of the only states where when you do a background check, it goes through the state police, who then send it to the FBI for a background check and then give it back to the dealer. So they know every person that had a background check done. They can tell at least whether it was a rifle, pistol, or a receiver that was been purchased, or a background check was done. Then they simply go to the gun shop and ask for the records, and they can prove it. So there will be actual records of people buying these firearms.
And that's something I think a lot of people have major concerns about, especially with state police saying that any weapons bought during that week of an injunction in place, those weapons are possessed after PICO is enacted and therefore cannot even be registered come the January 1st deadline. That's if, and that's a big if, all of these measures are found to be constitutional. Robert Beavis challenging Illinois and Naperville's gun ban. Give us the website one more time.
Again, the website is lawweapons.org, and there's a pop-up right there for donations, and also the givesendgo.com/lawweapons. Anywhere you can help, we appreciate it, but feel free to come into the shop and buy any items we are allowed to sell, and have a conversation, and let us help to educate everybody out there to fight for our freedoms.
Robert Beavis, Law, Weapons, and Supply out of Naperville. Greatly appreciate your time. We'll talk again in the near future, all right?
You got it, Greg. Take care. Thank you.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.